Good evening, everybody. How is everybody? Tonight is Thursday, December 3rd. We're ready for a new month. It's almost Christmas. Thank you for coming tonight for tonight's live. And let's get started. As you know, I'll try to finish here in about 30 minutes. So here we go. It's going to take about 10 seconds to go to share screen, and then we'll get started. Hope everybody's having a good night. There we go. And you're welcome to send messages if you like. I will not see them until after the live, so feel free. And here we go. A little bit different live for us tonight. But as you know, I start every live with the slide. Let's get started. Let's get started. Vamos começar. And we're going to go directly to the title page slide tonight, and that is Mixing Politics and Religion. Mixing Politics and Religion. Can it be done? Now, there's two options for this in Portuguese. Can it be done? Pode ser feito ou dá para fazer. Dá para fazer. Can it be done? All right. Now, let's look first at the Feast of Pentecost. A little strange. The Pentecost means 50. So Pente, 50 in Greek. So Pentecost, Pentecostal, we'll look at that, but for another day. But for tonight, Pentecost means 50th day, or 50th, so 50th. And it's celebrated on the 50th day after Passover. Now, in Portuguese, you comemorar. In English, we celebrate. So we celebrate birthdays and Christmas. And it's also known as the Feast of Weeks. Feast of Weeks, or feast, festival, festival, festa. I don't remember if festival is a word in Portuguese. I'm sorry, I have never used it. But it is one day after 7 weeks. So 7 weeks, and then the next day they have, hey, it's party time. So now tonight we're going to have the italics are going to be the prepositions, and the brackets will be in the third column. So we have two of those in the brackets. It is celebrated, participio, and it is known also as the Feast of Weeks. All right. So the first Pentecost was told in Acts 2. Now the Feast of Pentecost started years ago in Israel, but this is the first Christian Pentecost. Então, Peter gave his sermon. We all know what happened on that day. About 3,000 people were added to the group of believers. So he had an electric sermon that night. But we're going to focus on what came next. And that's found in Acts 2, 42 through 46. The believers spent their time listening to the teaching of the apostles. This time we have 12 apostles. Actually 11 apostles. It's in Judas. We lost Judas there. They shared everything with each other. They ate together and prayed together. So, very good. Everyone was amazed. Maravilhado. So, amazed. Now, the verb amaze would be surpreender. It's a little stronger than surpreender, but that's what you'll get from Google. So, everyone was amazed. Now, to Santa Coluna, there we go. We have a different meaning to the word. So everybody was amazed at what God was doing. They were amazed when the apostles performed many signs and wonders. Now, in Portuguese, when you say put in perform, it comes up realizar. A little strange for me for that word in Portuguese, realizar. I would use do. When the apostles fizeram, when the apostles did many signs and wonders, maravilhas. So there's wonders, maravilhas, and signs, sinais. So, and just to confuse you, we have the word wonderful, maravilhoso, and the verb wonder is imaginar. Little crazy. In English, the wonder and wonderful are separate words. A very different context. And more stuff. Red letters, remember red letters are the words with any, some, no, and every. And then the blue letters are the essential words. We need these words. We need the blue letter words. These for the next level, not just your intermediate, but everybody needs to be comfortable with those. All right. And Acts 2:44-46, here we go. All the believers stayed together and shared everything. They're shared again. Compartilhar, they shared everything. Yeah, that's pretty nice. They sold property and other things they owned. Now, owned is possuir. So they sold many things that they owned. That's great. And they divided the money and gave it to those who needed it. And every day they met together in the temple courtyard. Now, courtyard, we'll look at this in a little bit, the temple courtyard. And then they ate meals together in their homes. So meals are refeições. And we'll look at those too in just a minute also. So they shared their food happily and freely. And these are the adverbios with LY. So you know that. Livremente, facilmente, felizmente. So they shared their food happily. This word in English does not translate well. It's more like disposto in English, in Portuguese, disposto, and they said happily. Well, disposto can mean that you don't like it, but here disposto and they liked it, so happily, because as you know, happily and felizmente literally in English is happily. So well, we'll wait for another day on those. Now, first, I want to take a look at the temple in Jerusalem, just to show you the picture. There were 4 parts in the temple. There's the court of priests, the court of men, the court of women, and the court of the Gentiles. These are 4 different courts, and together I believe they made the courtyard. I'm not familiar with court and courtyard. I've heard the words used, but the only time I've used a court is in sports. Court, we play basketball. Tennis, we play on a court. Anyhow, now here's a 3D model. Here's a picture of what the temple looked like, and you see it's very impressive. Very nice building here. And on the outside, only by the columns, that's the court of the Gentiles. So the Gentiles could only go in the perimeter, the periphery, or periferia, in the outside of the temple. So they could enter, but just on the outside, the periphery. And then the inside courtyards were for the priests, the men, and the women. And together these made, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the courtyard altogether. Very impressive architecture there. Anyhow, is this part of the temple today? Let's take a look. Everybody has seen this. This is the, what we call the Muro de Lamentação. In English, that's the Wailing Wall. And I don't want to say everybody, but many people think it's the remains of the temple, but it is probably not part of the temple. It is probably what is left, Hesta, of the Roman fort, Antonia. Would you say it was Hestus of the Roman fort? In Matthew 24, Jesus said, Jesus was talking to his disciples and then said, and I wanted to look at this for talking and said. Talking is just the verb. Pedro is talking right now. It's not important what he is saying or who he is talking to. But here, Jesus was talking in the direction of the Gentiles. The message is not important at all. Now, say is like talking, but it is the verb. And then said. This is the verb that's important. And then here's the message. After Jesus left the temple, his disciples came over and said, look at all these buildings. So his disciples came over. So they were close to him. Come over. Come over is, remember, over can be where you're pointing. Over there. Pedro is over there. The bank is over there. Now, come over can be short distance or it can be from the telephone. Pedro, what are you doing? Nothing. Oh, great. I'm going to come over and let's play basketball. So here it's a short distance, I guess, emotionally, when you're on the phone. Look at all these buildings. And Jesus replied, do you see these buildings? They will certainly be torn down. Not one stone. So not one means nenhuma pedra will be left in place. Left, deixar. And here's the verb tear. Tear is rasgar, I believe restaurar. So tear your clothes. If you tear your clothes, you can't use them again. So that's why I prefer rasgar and restaurar. But tear down, now here's a phrasal verb. Tear down, not only is destruir, but you see the other context. Demolir, derrubar, destruir. So it's total destruction. So they will certainly be torn down, these buildings, edificios. They will certainly be torn down, not one stone, nenhuma pedra. But we will look at that on another day, where actually, if this is not the temple, where was the temple? So that's enough for another day. Now meals, I want to look at meals too, because there is some confusion. Meals, everybody knows the 3 meals basically. So you have breakfast, café de manhã, lunch, almoço, and then dinner, jantar. Now, in the United States, in many regions, they also eat supper. And many, so they eat 4 meals. Some people eat 4 meals. And yes, that's probably why many Americans are a little overweight. Now, dinner and supper usually you can use one or the other, either or, tanto faz. But there is still a context, the Last Supper. I guess in Portuguese, última ceia. But supper is more of a formal environment. That's when the family came together. So 100 years ago, on the farm, they ate breakfast early in the morning. They ate lunch around noon. And then when they finished working, then they ate a little, not a meal, but something that was, because they worked all day, they needed food. And then the family came together around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and they ate supper. So supper was more formal. Now, tanto faz in the United States. Some places still eat 4 meals a day. So it's a little different there. Now, between meals, hopefully we have snacks, including salgados. If you buy potato chips, Doritos, here you call them salgados. But in English, that can be a snack. So, anyhow. Now, you have heard this, another direction, you have heard this. Never discuss religion or politics, right? Never discuss religion or politics. Today we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So we have the same expression in English, bird is pássaro. But in Portuguese you can kill 2 rabbits. Pode matar 2 coelhos com uma pedra. So in English we use birds, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We're going to talk religion and politics. All right. Now last week somebody told me something. I was at a barbecue, and they told me something recently. You know this word recently, recentemente. So, and he said, the first believers in the book of Acts were socialists. Ooh, you know this word, socialista. And he used this verse, the same verse we looked at. The believers spent their time listening to the teaching of the apostles. They shared everything with each other, un com outro, un do outro, un para outro, in this case, un com outro, and they ate together and prayed together. This is very dangerous. We can't do this. One thing we can never do is we can never mix generous with socialist. There is a big difference between generous and socialist. Então, now when the authorities, you know this word, autoridades, when the authorities tell us what to do with our money, the state becomes God. So God becomes the state becomes the Deus. And socialism becomes our religion. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's slow, fast or slow, we still arrive where the state becomes the God. Now, what did Paul have to say about socialism? Well, 2 Corinthians 9:7, he said, each of you, now remember, each other, un como otro, un para otro, oh, no. Here, each is cada. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. Now you know these words, reluctantly, reluctantemente, I believe, reluctantemente, reluctantly. It's the same thing in Portuguese and English. Cruzão, under compulsion, forced, obrigado. Então. But what about Jesus, Pedro? What did he say? Well, let's take a look in Luke 12:13 through 15. One of the men in the crowd said to Jesus, now here's one of the men in the crowd. Crowd will be multidão. Multidão, one of the men in the crowd said to Jesus, Teacher, our father just died, já morreu, and left some things for us. So this is herança. He just died and left. He just died, left some things for us. But actually, tell my brother to share them with me. Now here's tell. Now tell is when the message is important, not the verb. Tell my brother to share them with me. Here's the message. Boom, share them. Compartilhar comigo. Share them. But Jesus said to him, now here's the verb was what he's saying. This is the act that is, they're emphasizing, enfatizando the verb. So who said, I should be your judge? Debería, should be your judge or decide how to divide your father's things between you two. Entre vocês dois. What did Jesus say next? Then he told the crowd, multidão, be careful to guard yourselves against every kind of greed. Now, yourselves, remember, vocês mesmo does not exist. It's yourselves, themselves, myself, yourself, singular. So yourselves, the plural is selves, and not the you. So be careful, cuidado, to guard yourselves against every kind of greed. Now, kind is tipo, as you know, and greed is ganancia. And here it is in Portuguese. It's better than me explaining. Speaking de sobreavisos contra todo tipo de ganancia. So greed, ganancia. Because a person's life doesn't consist of the possessions. You know this word, possessions, possessões, consist of, consistir. So you know this. Money can't buy you happiness, right? You guys know that. What about Jesus at the temple? Well, he turned over the money changers' tables. Here's cambista, cambio. This is they were cambistas. He turned over, by the way, turn over. So turnover is turnover. Virou, you just say virou, as mesas. So he turned over the money changers' tables. by the way, change, of NASA. I'm forgetting, I don't remember change in Portuguese. Oh, NASA, what happened? Trocar can be changed, but então, Jesus did not go to Rome. He did not go to Rome and turn over the tables in Rome. He did not go to the emperor. He did not go to Pilate and say, what you're doing is wrong. He did not go to the bank. Bank of Jerusalem, Bank of Rome. He did not go to the bank and turn over their tables. And he did not go to San Miguel Avenue. Sorry, Alex, he did not go there. He needs to go there and not turn over the somebody's tables. Anyhow, now this was a problem of the religious class. And that's why Jesus turned over their tables. They were making money from this. Now, make money is ganhar. Here is fazer in English, make money. My wife and them. Now, how did they make money, the money changers? Well, when the Jews went to Jerusalem for the festivals, from the other cities, from the other around, remember only let me start again, more Jews lived outside of Israel than lived in Israel. Probably 10% of the Roman Empire at this time is Jewish. There were many in Alexandria, many everywhere, Babylonia, but more Jews lived outside. So in time for the festivals, they had a temple tax. So, and that's what paid for the sacrifices and the other things, the salaries, salarios. And when they came from another country, just like today, they needed to convert the currency from the Roman, I don't know what the Roman currency was, but they needed to change that, I think, to shekels in Israel. And of course, they were taking advantage of the people, especially the poor people, who they didn't have conditions, they didn't have money. They were taking advantage. They're taking advantage of everybody, but it's worse for the poor people. And they used that to keep power. Now remember, Rome occupied Israel at this time. And Rome didn't ask for much, except keep calm and keep the money coming. So to keep power, the priests, and they tried everything to get money from every direction. And so what they did was they took advantage of the people. Tirar vantagem, vantagem of the people. So they took advantage, aproveitar, tirar vantagem of the people to keep power. That's all. Anyhow, now let's think about the Good Samaritan. Why did Jesus call him good? Why did he? Well, because he personally helped. You know this word, it means he helped the man who was beaten. He helped the man. And he helped somebody in need when others just passed him by. Now, pass by is the same as pasar. Ele passou, outros passaram. So here, others passed him by. Pass by, again, just we need that preposition. We can use in this case. He didn't wait for anybody else to help. Now remember this word, else, outro, mais, anybody else to help. He didn't wait for the government to send a cesta básica to this guy. Obviously, the worst option for anything is the government. Então, that's for another day. Now, there are two reasons people like socialism. One is they want power. They want power. So then they need poor people. And we're going to fix their problems. There wouldn't be a socialist government if there was nobody who was poor. And the poor people have to increase because they need power. If they are happy with where they are, well, then they're going to lose power. So powerful people won't need socialism. And we see that here today. Or they're lazy, and lazy, preguiçoso. And that's unfortunate. Now, the other thing, by the way, some people are socialist only because they hate God. And it comes from this. They say that this is a better system, but they just don't like, they don't like or love God. They hate God. And so they become socialists or some other form of government control. A little strange, but we can talk about this later if you like. Anyhow, but you remember this. Remember this in Genesis 4:9. God asked Cain, "Where is your brother? Where is your brother?" And Cain replied, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Now this is the old English version. Am I my brother's keeper? And brother's keeper is guarda do meu irmão. And in Portuguese, I don't know, não sei, sou eu o responsável por meu irmão. Are you your brother's keeper? Of course you are. Of course you are. So is Cain. And that's the purpose of our religion. We are a brother's keeper. We need to make sure that the doctrine is good, and also we need to make sure that they're okay. If they need help of some kind. So are we our brother's keeper? Absolutely, absolutely. In Matthew 26:11 and Mark 14:7, the poor you will always have with you. The poor you always have with you. Unfortunately, now for socialists, they want more poor people. Now for us, we should give them the tools or the opportunities to not be poor. And capitalism is not the problem. It is also not the answer. And by the way, socialism is definitely not the answer either. It is a question of the heart. This is a question of the heart. And this is a problem of the 21st century, 20th and 21st century. The churches have become a place for, it's a Jesus show. Good music, good sermon, but the church is practically dead. Morta. We just are not the keeper of our brother's keepers. And that's really the bad news. And here, this is a long story, what has happened. I can't. So we will stop here. We will stop here, everybody. But we can't forget, we are our brother's keeper. We need to look for those opportunities. Look for, not wait for them or have them fall into our hands. We need to look for that opportunity. If not, the government will take care of that. And there are two competing forces, one against the other. And someday we will look at this again, more technicamente. But we will stop here for tonight, everybody. Thank you for coming, and see you next week on Thursday night or in class. So have a good night, everybody, and a good weekend. Stay safe. Stay away from the coronas, those Chinese virus, please. And again, have a good weekend. See you next week.